Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Chris Smith. Hi, Chris.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a guest on this podcast. I am very excited about our conversation today because we are going to talk about something that is so important and comes before anything else, which is basically the identity of the business and the purpose of the business. And we're going to talk about how you help entrepreneurs to actually find that identity, define it, find the story and their purpose. But before we get started and introduce you with your bio and have you definitely share with the listeners what you do, and then I have so many questions for you, I'd like to give a big shout out to Bob Adritis, who introduced us. And I did a great podcast with Bob, and I was also on his podcast. And Bob helps entrepreneurs to actually manage their wealth and create more wealth and make sure that they know what they're doing with the profits and the hard-won money that they have. And he is definitely a wealth of information. And I would recommend to listen to that podcast that I did. And I'm going to have the podcast also in the show notes for this podcast, so you can refer to it. So thank you, Bob, for the great introduction. And now, Chris, over to you. So the name of your company is The Possibility Company, right? Because you like to talk to entrepreneurs about possibility, about what's possible, what's out there, and to actually be able to see the possibility, to see what is possible and how to do that. So I know I gave the introduction, but I would love to hear from you a little bit more in terms of how did you come about to start this company about 12 years ago, and who do you like to work with?
Yeah, thank you. So this idea behind the name of the company is, we believe that possibility exists, but limitation is created. So when you look out into the world, we believe all there is possibility, but you have to really have eyes to see it. But limitation, it doesn't exist out there until we create it. And so my own journey to your question of, 12 years ago, like, how'd you start this company? I would like Bob, and Bob's an incredible, I call him, he's a financial advisor, but what he really is he's a leader to his company, to his clients, and provides real leadership. So 12 years ago, I was a financial advisor myself, and I was head of business development for a firm, and we merged that firm with another firm. And I don't know if you've ever been a part of a merger. They can just be challenging because you're trying to take two different cultures and make them into one, two different identities and make them into one, two different, cultures. And it can just be tough, two different brands. And so I was kind of watching this merge unfold, or tried to at least. And they put both of us into a brand new location, and we were just kind of left to figure it out. And all of a sudden I just started feeling really called to help these two companies figure out, how to come together and create maybe a one identity that was bigger than both of the companies. And how do we create some real alignment? So without ever having done this before, I just jumped in, and I was able to make a lot of mistakes because I was volunteering, so they couldn't fire me. I was just trying to help. And a really long story short, because we got really intentional about who are we? Who do we really feel called to serve? What's our purpose? We started getting really intentional and started to create a lot of alignment to our identity. And so instead of running around trying to be all things to all people, we started asking some really confronting questions like, what do we want to be known for? What are we committed to more than anything? What's our purpose? And what was really profound, Audie, is as we did that, it just started kind of forcing this alignment with everything. And we just experienced this explosive growth over the next 2 years. So within 2 years, we were bringing in as much business in a month as we previously had done in a year. And that's when I kind of realized, wow, I think this is what I'm called to do. More than doing, business development for a financial planning, wealth management firm. I want to go teach other firms how to do this. And so that's what we've been doing ever since, and really refining our methodology the entire time. But that one experience taught me this lesson, that what you shared in the opening is it all starts with identity. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and organizations kind of just jump over. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is to really look at your identity and ask questions like, what do we want to be known for? What's our purpose? What are we committed to more than anything? Those are really confronting questions. And sometimes we don't like confronting things. So it's easier just to like, well, let's just go keep growing. Let's just go keep marketing and all the fun, exciting things. But we have found that if we can really help an organization pause for just a second and really confront this idea of identity, everything becomes more intentional, more sustainable. People become more convicted and aligned, within the culture. And so that's how it started.
100%. I so agree with you, Chris. What we do is we document the processes and procedures for companies and help them implement it. And we work with several companies that have merged. And I experienced exactly what you were talking about, because you have two different cultures. You have to be aligned, first of all, in who you are in the culture. And then they obviously come with different practices, different procedures, different processes. But if you don't have the identity of who you are, then how do you choose which procedures are going to go into place? And then it becomes a confusion, right? So first of all, it starts with identifying what is your purpose, what's your mission, what's your vision, where are you going? And then you can align the best practices to it. And it's so much easier to then combine the practices, combine the documentation, create maybe a new one. But I completely understand and totally resonate with what you just said. So let's dive into it. Okay, so we have a business, and the majority of entrepreneurs probably like you and me. I mean, you started already knowing that that's what you're doing. So you probably already identified your identity. But, I can tell you from my own story, you how to do something. You either were working a corporate job and decided to do it yourself, or you had a talent for something, or something happened and you started your business and you start doing things and producing, and you became successful. And then you go, okay, now I need to take it to the next level. So yeah, who am I? What's my identity, right? So you need to define that identity. But not only that, you also have to define your own story. Like, you have to tell your story so people understand what is it that you do and really understand your identity and your purpose. So then they can decide, yes, I want to work with you, or no, I don't want to work with you, right? Because it works both ways, which is good, because it's a way to actually identify who the people, like who will come through your doors. So what do you see? Let's start first of all with, what do you see are the common mistakes that businesses do in regards to their identity or the explanation of what they do?
Yeah, and I think it'd be fun, Adi, if you're game for it, we could even kind of use your company and model it a little bit.
Let's do it. Okay. So yeah, let's do it. I love it. So okay, let's start.
So one of the things that we see is a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of organizations unintentionally commoditize themselves. And look, a lot of us are in commoditized industries, right? If you're a coach, consultant, financial advisor, there's a lot of competition. And I don't think any business owner intentionally wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to try to commoditize myself. I'm going to try to blend in and look and sound like everyone else. And yet we see business owners doing it to themselves all the time, because they're having the exact same conversation that everyone else in their industry is having. They're talking to people the same way everyone else is talking to them. And the reason for this is they focus way too much on their industry and way too little on their identity. So the very first thing we have them look at is we separate their industry from their identity. Because most entrepreneurs and organizations can't see that there's any difference because they're so close to it. And we always say you can't read the label from inside the bottle. And all of us in our own businesses, we're in the bottle, right? So for example, with your business, I would say that the industry you're in, from what I know, is we could just call it business consulting. Would that be a fair statement? The industry.
Yeah, the industry can be, yes.
Yes. And look, we could refine that, but just for sake of time, let's just say that industry.
Let's do that. Yeah, industry, business consulting, yes.
And at the same time, it's like, but that's not who we are. Right. That's what we do. So even that, as simple as that sounds, most businesses have never separated who they are from what they do, right? So it's like, what we do is business consulting. That's our industry. But what about like our identity? Who are we in a way that like no one else can talk about it? Who are we in a way that isn't commoditized? It's really unique. So when we ask an organization, what do you want to be known for? Most of them, and we don't give them a lot of guidance when we first ask this question because we just want to see what comes out of them. We'll say, well, hey, what do you want to be known for more than anything? 99.9% of them immediately flock to their industry and they start talking about like, we want to be the best business consultants on the planet. We want to be the best financial advisors. We want to be and I tell people, you really don't want to. Like, it's okay to be that, but you don't want to be known for that because that's the road to commoditization. You're talking about the same thing everyone else is. We've got to think deeper than our industry. But a lot of people have not thought, it's kind of confronting, but when we can start to get them to really think at a deeper level, okay, yeah, this is what we do, and look, it's amazing, I'm not taking anything away from it. But it's like, but who are you? What's the identity that's bigger than your industry? And so for you, Adi, yes, business consulting is what we do, but when you really look at the outcome it creates, when you really look at the purpose behind it and more of the identity of who you are, what would you say that is for you?
We basically, what we do for companies is, we do it through through the process documentation, but really what we do is we give them the opportunity to have well-trained staff that are capable to produce what they're producing. We're really bringing order into the company, right? Not as an organizer, I'm not like organizing their closet, but we're bringing order into the confusion, and we allow them to replicate their success. So we work with successful entrepreneurs that got to a certain level and they hit a plateau. Now they need to get to the next level, and the way they're going to get to the next level is by scaling, by growing, by efficiently training their staff, but by being able to transfer the knowledge, right? So we allow them to replicate the success to where they got to where they are at right now and get to the next level by providing the business documentation. But that's the doing, that's the do.
Okay. And once you do that, right? So fast forward out a little bit. Once that business owner has replicated themselves, has really trained up their staff, what now is possible for that business owner and their team that wasn't possible before?
So what's possible right now, it is to sell the business at a higher profit, to have more time, basically, and whatever that is for. And that's what we go over with the business owner. Like, different people want different ROI from this process, right? But the most common ones is to have more time, to not be in the business, but either being able to work on the business, start a new business, spend time with the family. I give this example. One of my clients said, if I can actually have dinner with my family 3 times a week, so I can show up at 6 o'clock and have dinner with my family, that's what I want. So at that point, we are the creator of the time with dinner with your family, right?
Yeah. See, and that's the part that actually matters. See, like, if I'm a business owner, I'm so much more likely to engage in a conversation with you around your identity and your purpose,
right,
than I am around documenting processes and systems and being a business consultant.
Absolutely, because you don't care. As a visionary, you don't care. It's like if I tell you, you know what, Chris, I can get you to have dinner with your family 3 times a week, and then maybe we'll go to 4 and 5. Yes, sign me up, whatever you need to do. Or another one is errors. They were making a lot of errors and losing customers. They wanted to be an error-free company. It's actually like also in the financial advising industry, for example. I work with many financial advisors as well, like document their processes. And you can't have errors. It's a highly compliant. You can make errors with people's money,
Right.
But what if we eliminate those errors? And then what happens then? Eliminates all your headaches. You have peace of mind. Peace of mind. I want peace of mind. I don't want any errors. Do whatever you need to do. Here you go.
Yeah, totally. And so so this, and again, for the sake of time, we don't have time to go through all of it. And it's already like, oh, interesting. Documenting processes and systems, business consulting is what we do, right? That's the industry we're in. But who we are, our purpose is to give entrepreneurs peace of mind and give them back their time. So that, like, and again, it's like, which one, and not just for you, but like also with your own team, which one's really worth getting out of bed for in the morning? Like, which one inspires you to like, feel like, man, I'm part of this. I'm part of this idea of like, we're helping entrepreneurs have dinner with their family 3, 4, 5 nights a week. Whereas before they weren't having dinner with them even 1 night a week. Right. And so the point is when we uncover that identity for an organization and we start to tap into like, this is who we are. This is our identity. The second piece of that is now we help them commit to talking about it. What we say, everywhere, all the time, to everyone. Like, I've never met an organization prior to working with us that is talking about their purpose and their identity enough. Not even close. So even if they do uncover this identity and they uncover who they are, it's not enough to just roll it out to your team in one meeting and then touch it every quarter. It's like literally every single day, all we're talking about is who we are and our purpose. And we're talking about it all the time, everywhere, to everyone, like an obsession. And we get everyone in our organization, right, talking about it. So even in our own business, yeah, business coaching is what we do, right? Business coaching, consulting, that's what we do. And it's great. But who we are is we awaken leaders to see what's actually possible in every area of their life. And as a result of working with us, the outcome of that is we often see leaders becoming their most bold, authentic selves with the language to back it up and experiencing a level of freedom they never thought possible. Right. So that's all we talk about. We talk very little about what we do. We talk very little about coaching, consulting. And if you were to interact with any of my team members or just follow them around on a daily basis and listen to their conversations, I'd be willing to bet my life savings that the word possibility and freedom comes up 2 to 3 dozen times a day by me and each of our team members. It's all we talk about. Why? Because that's who we are. That's our purpose. And it's an identity that's bigger than me, even as the founder. It's an identity that's bigger than any one person. And going back to the idea of when two companies merge, great, we have these two companies that are really amazing. How do we create an identity that's bigger than both of them, but they can all align to? And man, once we have that identity, now it brings into focus, well, if this is who we are, well, then who do we feel most called to serve? What are we the best in the world at, right? Everything flows to and from and back to that identity.
It totally does, and just by talking to you, I realize, that's what we help business owners gain freedom by extracting them, by basically, getting free from the necessity to be there on a day-to-day basis and add their knowledge to the equation, right? We help them gain the freedom by extracting them out of the organization by doing the knowledge transfer. That's really what we do, right? And then we take that knowledge transfer, but not only we do that, we don't just transfer the knowledge, we put it in duplicatable, replicatable systems that others can follow and make sure that they follow, so you get to the end result of the owner extracted out of the business being able to then fulfill whatever it means to them, more time to do whatever you want to do. And that is really the entire cycle of what we do.
Yeah, and I think that idea of freedom that's the conversation that your prospective clients are interested in having.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation as a business owner that we're often most comfortable having is about our industry. So the risk in that is you have two fundamentally different conversations trying to happen in like a sales conversation, meaning you have the business owner or someone who works for that business owner. They're having a conversation about the industry. Like, oh, let me tell you about process and systems and why they're so important and why I need to document them. And let me tell you about how good we are at that. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's just, and then you have the business owner. They're not interested in having a conversation oftentimes about processes and systems or coaching and consulting. They're interested in having a conversation about freedom, time, peace of mind. And so it's like we're making it difficult, and people still move forward and do business with us, but a lot of times almost in spite of our own message, almost in spite of our own story, they're able to see through what we're saying and find some value and move forward with us. And it's like, why don't we just have the conversation they want to have? Because the conversation that our clients want to have, our prospective clients, they want to have a conversation about our identity and who we are and the outcome it creates for them. We're comfortable though having the conversation around what we do in our industry. And look, that's a good thing. Like, it's good that you want to talk so much about what you do as a business owner, because that means you believe in it. But you have to have the discipline to realize that's not the conversation they want to have, because they're not in your industry. They're not you. They're not interested in the same things we're interested in. And another thing is we just make this really complex as business owners. Like, we just believe that, like, a lot of business owners, when it comes to their identity and their message, they're just trying to say too much stuff about too many things to too many people. And again, if you followed us around, I think by the end of the day, most businesses would be shocked, even following our own team around. They'd be like, hey, I've heard Chris use the same 2 or 3 sentences all day long, whether he's on an existing client call, whether he's talking to his team, or he's talking to a prospective client or a strategic partner. This guy just says the exact same thing over and over and over. It's like, yeah, that's the intention. That's what we're trying to get all of our clients to as well. Stop trying to say so much stuff about so many things to so many people, and you're kind of known for everything, which means you're known for nothing. Or become known for something and go all in on it and go really deep. And sadly, most business owners never get to that point. And a lot of marketing and branding agencies aren't set up to help someone accomplish that. And that's not taking a shot at marketing and branding agencies. They're amazing at what they do. But if you think about most marketing and branding agencies, they're set up to help you amplify whatever you bring to them. Well, they're going to amplify whatever you bring to them. So if what you bring to them is a lot of stuff, then they'll amplify a lot of stuff. But if you bring to them something that's very clear, very aligned, very purpose-driven, and very identity-focused, so we really focus more on that. There's clarifiers and amplifiers, and we've just kind of made a name for ourselves and gone all in on we want to live in this world of clarifying who you are and drive it internally for culture and externally for growth.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a question on the story, right? Because you also then help, like when I read your testimonials on your website, it was very clear that, and a lot of us run into it, like we ask, what do you do, right? And then you try to extend a bit too technical and you can overwhelm people. You have to have a story. You have to have a presentation that is succinct, to the point, creates interest, and wants the person then to know, get the person to know more. What are the key components of a good story that you can tell or that you can create around your brand once you identify who you are? What are the key components that, if our listeners are listening right now, that will help them to create that story for them?
Yeah, I would say that the first thing that I would say about the power of a really good story is it's a story that in the telling of the story, people can relate to it and they can see what's possible for them. And oftentimes, that's the story of a client that I've already successfully served that I feel like is similar to the person I'm talking to. So let's say you're a prospective client, Audie, and you and I are having a conversation. If I can say, hey, Audie, you and your situation actually really remind me of another client we've worked with. Can I share their story with you and what we're able to do for them? That's so powerful because it's like, well, yeah, I'd love to hear the story of someone that you've successfully helped that's like me, because there's such a strong likelihood that in the telling of that story to you, you'll be able to relate to like, oh yeah, where they once were is where I'm at now. Here's what you did for them, and here's what their business looks like now. Like, wow, like I can relate to it. It's relevant, and I can see possibility in it for me. The second piece is that story only needs to be 2 or 3 minutes long. Like, I don't know where we got this idea that like these stories need to be like really dramatic and really like, like large and big and long. And it's like, I actually totally disagree with all of that. I think we should strip a lot of the drama out of it. I think oftentimes business owners have been taught these really bad habits of trying to do too much with their story and trying to make it bigger than it is. We're actually really big believers in tell a story that's simple, that's truthful, and that's succinct and powerful. Like, you don't need 5, 10, 15 minutes to tell a great story. In fact, I think that kind of is what has it not be a great story. I think if you can tell a story in 2 to 3 minutes that's relevant. So what I mean by relevant and relatable, there's got to be something in the story that's relevant to the pain, struggle, or challenge they're currently in. So if I tell a story about all these amazing things, but never talk about the pain, struggle, or challenge that either I was in or the person was in that I helped, you're like, oh, great. I love that you did all that great stuff for them, but that's not where I'm at, right? But if you can relate to it and find it relevant, and then the second thing I would say is you can also tell your own personal story. So you can either tell the story of transformation of one of your clients or your own, but you want to start with where you once were, which was some type of struggle, pain, challenge. There was some type of breakthrough or realization you had. And then there's like what your life looks like now. So that's a really simple 3-part. What was the challenge? There was some moment of breakthrough or a realization. And then like, what does life look like now? It's just such a simple formula. And literally you can do it in 2 to 3 minutes and people can see a lot of possibilities in it and they can really relate to it. So I would also challenge you for your own personal story. It's like, man, I'd love to practice my own personal story and being able to tell it in 2 to 3 minutes. And so like, I'll just model that for you, right? So if I say, yeah, so 15 years ago, I was at a place in my life where, I was at the lowest point in my life. I felt like a failure as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur. I was broke mentally, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. And I truly was like, saw no hope or no purpose for my life. And luckily for me, some really powerful leaders showed up in my life and spoke possibility into me and helped me see that more could be possible. And for the first time in a long time in my life, I started to see that like maybe I could be a powerful leader. Maybe I could have a great marriage. Maybe I could be a powerful husband and father. And as I started stepping into possibility, realizing there was way more that was possible, I felt super called to do that for other people. I felt called to speak possibility into others. And so when I look at where I'm at today and owning a company like the Possibility Company, it's because, I had powerful people who spoke possibility into me, and I feel really called to speak possibility into others and help them see that more is possible.
Beautiful.
It's just like, and granted, I could tell a lot more, right? Details if someone wanted to ask me or wanted to know more. But it's got to be relevant and relatable, simple. And just those three parts is kind of what we teach and what we follow. And it's amazing how many entrepreneurs and business owners have come to us with really complex stories that are really convoluted and super hard to remember and hard for their team. That's another thing. If a story is long or challenging, the likelihood of getting your team, which is what all of us as business owners, we don't want to be the only ones who can share the message, because if we are, then we'll be the only ones who share the message. We're trying to also create a message, Audie, that's scalable.
Right.
Meaning multiple people in the organization can go out and tell it. Well, that's only going to happen if it's simple.
Absolutely. That's why I like to tell my story in terms of like, how did I get started with this? I mean, I'm an industrial engineer. I've been doing it for over 30 years. I was working for an international consulting company, working with many clients. And then I decided to start my own. And I just started doing general business consulting. And one of the things I will tell my clients, hey, you need processes and procedures in order to, for all the reasons we mentioned, right? Scale, grow, sell the business, make it duplicable, get you the freedom that you want, the time. And week after week after week, they will come back and say, well, we didn't have the time to do it. We don't have the know-how. We can't find time to do it. We can't find time. And then I said, one day I had a bright idea. I said, well, how about if I do it for you? I interview your people and I'll do it for you. Wow. Yes. Can you do it, please? And then within 3 months, boom, everything was done. So I realized that that's what entrepreneurs want. They do need those processes. They do need those procedures documented for, again, to achieve the same, everything that we talked about. They just don't have the know-how. They do it too little or too much. They start writing one procedure, takes them 200 pages. I've seen it. Actually seen 800 pages by one person. Or they just don't have the time. They don't know where to start, etc. So that's why we started this do it for you, where in a certain amount of time, always on time, it will be done, and also train on your staff. So that's really my story of why I started my company and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, and if I could give you one just suggestion to that, and you did a beautiful demonstration of here was a problem, struggle, or challenge I saw, right? Or first it was like, here's why I felt so called to do this. Here's the problem, they didn't have enough time. So I had this realization. And by the way, just realizations are really important. When you say I realized, you want to unpack the realizations you had, because there's like a lot of wisdom in those. And so we teach people how to connect the dots of their story through their realizations. And most people have had about 2 to 3 really significant ones, whether they realize it or not. So we go back and uncover those realizations. And then that's a simple little story hack of how to teach everyone how to tell the story through realizations. So it's like, I realized that these business owners were all saying they didn't have enough time. So I said, why don't we just do it for you? And we started being able to do everything in 3 months that was previously taking them, years. And here's the biggest outcomes we saw. That's the only piece I would add into that story is like,
Love it.
The biggest outcomes we saw is one client hadn't eaten dinner with his family in over a year, and immediately was able to start eating dinner, 3 nights a week. Another client,
but they were never able to hire people on a massive scale. All of a sudden, they were able to hire and they were able to retain employees. And not only that, I had one employee come to me after we we showed him all the procedures and everything. And he said, I feel so much stability in my life because I've been moving from one company to another. But when I saw all this material, when I saw all this training, I knew that this company is strong and I need to stay here.
Yeah.
Right there.
So just, and when you would share those outcomes, I would just share 3 because people retain things in 3s. And I would share the 3 that are most relevant and relatable to the most. So it's like, one client was able to eat dinner with his family. Another company was able to actually keep and retain top talent. A third. And so again, if you think about a story like that, in 2 to 3 minutes, it's like, here's why I feel so called to do this. I'm going to share with you a pain, struggle, or challenge that you probably can relate with. And I'm going to share with you some of the biggest outcomes that we saw. And like, here's what those clients lives look like now. And it's just so simple for people to see something in it for them.
100%. 100%. That is so, yeah, totally true. Okay, I have another question. And that is, I know you help people really really hone in on their process. Like, what is it that they do? Because that's so hard to explain sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it? What do you do? I know you work with, like, let's say healthcare professionals, right? Especially in let's say functional medicine. It's really hard to explain what is it that they do. And then you can overwhelm people with so much information and go like, whoa, that's it. I want the freedom you're going to give me, but I don't want to understand all of this.
Yeah.
I still want to understand because I can't sign the dotted line if I don't understand what you do.
Yeah. So there's a difference, just like I said earlier, there's a difference between what you do and who you are, right? Your industry and your identity. There's also a difference between what you do and how you do it. And again, a lot of business owners have never seen those as separate. They're very different. They're very distinct. So again, what you do, right, might be functional medicine. That's what you do. You provide real hope and healing for people who previously have not had any answers from the medical system, let's just say, right? But that still begs the question about how do you do that? And the more simple you can articulate to a prospective patient sitting across from you, here's exactly how we're going to do it, the more confidence they have to actually do it with you. It'd like be me coming to you and say, hey, Adi, let's go on an international let's go on a cross-country road trip. And you're like, awesome. Like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to get there? And I'm like, oh, don't worry. We'll figure it out as we go. Like, just don't worry about it. Let's go. You'd be like, well, I don't have as much confidence in going because I don't know how we're going to go there. I don't know how we're going to get there. Versus if I came and say, hey, Adi, let's go on a cross-country road trip. Here's how we're going to get there. Here's the route we're going to, use. And here's the means by which we're going to go. You'd be like, oh, okay. Like, you'd have so much more confidence to go. And I think one of the things that we take for granted as business owners is we know how it's going to happen. Meaning, if someone comes on as a client, customer, patient, we know our process. We know how it's going to happen. We know when it's going to happen. We know like the steps along the way. They don't know any of that. And if you want to significantly boost their confidence in saying yes sooner and getting them to move forward. So after I deliver on my big promise of like, hey, here's what we do. Here's who we are. We're going to provide more freedom for you. If you don't wait for them to say, well, how are we going to do that? And you say, we're going to provide more freedom for you. And here's exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to do it through this amazing process I've designed called the 7 steps for healthy kids and happy moms. Step 1 is this, and it's super succinct, right? 1 bullet point of what we do, the outcome. Step 2, by the way, 7 steps to healthy kids and happy moms is actually a process we helped a pediatrician design that got her a book deal and a book written about it. So like our process is 3 steps, 3 pillars: uncover your identity, unlock your message, unleash your impact. So we can walk any entrepreneur or business owner through the 3 steps. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's the outcome for each pillar. And it just answers all their questions. Like, nothing at the end is like, because I think what happens a lot of times is we're talking with a prospective client. We're telling them all these amazing things about who we are and our story and our purpose and what we do and why we do it. And they're super interested, but in the back of their minds, whether they know it or not, they're still wondering like, how does this all happen?
100%.
How long does it take? And do we start here? Then what should we expect to see at the 30-day mark? What should we expect to see? You could just cover all of that and tell them exactly how it's going to happen. And if you name the process, right? And if you have named the steps, that implies to the prospective clients like, wow, they've really thought this through. This isn't their first time doing this. So there's a ton of value in naming your process, trademarking it if possible, naming the pillars or the steps, and being able to guide someone and even tell them what they're going to experience along the way at what timelines and what outcomes. And it just amazes me how many businesses have never named their process, don't articulate it, and don't know how to tie it into their identity. So here's another thing that's really cool when you start doing this is you're able to link back to, so if in my company, if we're telling people, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to help you see that more is possible than you've ever seen is possible in your organization. And we're going to help all of your people become their most bold, authentic selves with the language to back it up. And I go, and let me tell you exactly how we're going to do it. Through these 3 pillars we call uncover your identity, unlock your message, unleash your impact. Okay, let me tell you about uncover your identity and what we do there and how it benefits you. Let me tell you about unlock your message and what we do there and how it's going to benefit you. Let me tell you about unleash your impact and what we do in that pillar and how it's going to benefit you. And then let me tell you the timelines of what you're going to experience along the way. It's almost like they have no questions, like you've answered everything. And at the end, they're like,
it's so true.
oh, that makes sense.
It's so true. I recorded a podcast where I go over our proven process, and I'm actually going to include it in the show notes as well. And exactly what you said, I name each one of the steps. What are the deliverables? Like, what are the actions? What do you get at the end? Like, what is the actual result? People watch it, and people that watch it, they don't have any questions. Then they come on and they have maybe specific questions, but intelligent specific questions, and the sales cycle is so much faster because they already know, they already close themselves because they go, yeah, I understand what she does. That's what I want. But, in my situation, blah, blah, which is fine. You can always ask a few questions and
you love those kind of questions. Like,
right.
If someone comes on and is like, hey, Audie, that all made sense. I had a question about your step number 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of questions that don't serve anyone is like, you tell me all this great stuff, and then it's like, okay, well, like, I'm a little confused though. Like, how are you going to, that's not a great question, because what they're basically saying is like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Correct.
But if they come on and they're like, hey, all that makes sense. I totally get it. I just have a specific question because of an issue we're facing about pillar, your third step. Those are great questions because they're coming on. And here's another thing to listen for, Audie, and this might sound so subtle that no one catches this. You want to pay attention in a sales call, how often people are telling you at the end, when you're done telling them who you are, what you do, and how you do it, how often they say, oh, that makes sense. Because if you hear a lot of that makes sense, that's because it does. And that's also another way of them saying, I see a lot of value in this and I'm interested in moving forward. If you're not getting a lot of, oh, that makes sense, there's something missing in your message, in how you're positioning things, and how you're articulating things. And especially if you're getting a lot of like, okay, well, I still don't understand. Or if you get a lot of like, well, I'm kind of confused. Or if you get a lot of like, so what happens? Like, you want to pay attention to that. And we're like, well, why are they still asking us questions when we're done? Now, that's okay to ask questions when you're done, but it's like you want questions that are like, hey, tell me more about pillar number 1.
Right.
Hey, in your process, you said this. Tell me, those are great questions.
Or, you said that it will take 90 days. I actually only have 60. How can we make it? Can we make it in 60?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. Wow, Chris, this has been a wealth of information. We can go on and on, but I want, if our listeners, and I'm sure they want to know more about you and your company and how to get a hold of you. Tell us, how do we do that?
Yeah, we're often on podcasts to get asked that same question. So we just finally decided to put together just a really valuable, something that we actually at one time charged for. It's a short mini course, and we decided to start giving it and offering it as a gift. And so if you go to gettheclaritycode.com, you can basically take this little course we put together that asks some of these questions that has you start thinking about your identity, has you start thinking about your purpose. And look, whether you ever get in touch with us or not, I promise you, just by going through this course, you'll likely have more clarity than you've ever had on who you are, what you want to be known for, and that identity. And then we even teach you some practical applications of how to start using it in like daily conversations. And so that'd be probably the thing I'd recommend most if you want to get some, if you're interested in continuing this conversation.
Absolutely. So it's gettheclaritycode.com. We're going to have it in our show notes. Super excited. I'm super excited for our listeners to go there and find out and figure out that clarity that we all need as business owners. Even if you're very certain about your brand, do it, because I think it will elevate it to the next level of clarity. Chris, it's been a wonderful to have you here on this podcast. Thank you so much. And thank you for your wealth of information.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm honored to share. And it's inspiring what you do for business owners and entrepreneurs. So thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.